Hi, everyone. Hi, librarians. Hi, educators. My name is Jennifer Rubens, and we're so thrilled to welcome you to our Summer 2020 Audiobook Buzz. We know audiobooks are probably even more important than ever in this current moment. People are looking for connection. They're looking for things to listen to, kids especially. And so I'm very lucky to be joined here today by our Listening Library editorial team. So do you want to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Hi, everyone. I'm Rebecca Waugh.
And I'm Emily Parliament.
Hi, it's so nice to see you.
Thank you.
You too.
So I'm really excited that we can all just have this moment to chat together and then share with our librarian listeners some of what we're most excited about that's coming out or is already out for this summer. That will be great and really important, I think, for kids and families to listen to. So to jump right in, take a deep breath. Let's all start with some mindfulness. I think this is a really important category that is important at all times, right? I mean, I find myself with my 2-year-old reminding him like, oh yeah, I can teach him how to take a deep breath. Like that's just such an aha thing that I think I've learned from watching things for toddlers. And I'm so glad that we have these wonderful audiobooks coming to our list, or many on our list already. Emily, did you want to share a little bit about why you're so excited about these?
Yeah, I've been doing mindfulness and meditation and yoga type things like almost my entire life. And in the fall, I really got back into it. And with these mindfulness moments for kids books by Kira Wiley really booming, we decided to do a special audiobook of them that incorporates some gentle sound effects and music so that they really make special, almost like guided mindfulness moments for kids, 5 to 15 minutes, so they can relax and recharge. We've decided to put them out August 11th because even in the best of times, back to school can be an anxiety-producing transition for kids. And then now with coronavirus, and who knows whether or not they'll be back in the classroom, there's just a lot going on to incorporate mindfulness practices for. Mindfulness helps kids develop self-awareness, which is the first step to self-regulation. It can empower kids with skills to release anxiety, develop calm and focus, and even sleep better. And we've been hearing from parents that they're looking for titles to ease their youngest children's minds and help them develop strong social-emotional skills. And so another great one is The Seed of Compassion, which we published in March. It's His Holiness the Dalai Lama's first book, and that addresses children directly. And in it, His Holiness shares lessons of peace and compassion using stories from his own childhood. Francois Cho, who narrated His Holiness's sections in the Book of Joy, narrates The Seed of Compassion. And these are just really great for helping kids relieve anxiety, refocus, and develop strong social emotional skills like kindness and compassion.
I love how accessible they all seem too. Like even with the first by the Kira Wiley, like that they're calming activities that have like a short time span to it. So you know what you're signing up for, and you're like, okay, if I just press play on this and we have 5 to 15 minutes and you know what to do and you're led through it. And this too, I think it's just, you sometimes you just need a little help, like guiding your kids through what you know will help them, and it can help you too, I think, as a parent. Like these could be helpful for all ages, but especially for kids.
For sure. And it's great too because I learned from Kira Wiley the difference between mindfulness and meditation, that mindfulness is focusing outward. And so in things like Listen Like an Elephant, there will be kind of gentle animal noises in the background. So you'll kind of calm yourself with your surroundings. And then in a book like Meditate with Me, the focus is more inward and like focusing on kind of what's coming up and relieving that stress from the inside.
And then speaking of meditation, so we also have a step-by-step meditation journey for kids, which is so wonderful. So they can experience that as well and meditate with me.
Yeah. So And that one is another one that's written and read by an expert in this mindfulness and meditation field. Marianne Gates guides youngsters through a meditation, which is really special.
And I love that too, that like what the audiobook really provides is that expert, narrating for you who can guide you and your child or your family through, so you can all experience it together. And it's not just, it's not just handing you the reins and saying, here, lead your child through this, but you can really kind of take that moment together, or breathe together, and try it together. I think that's so important. And that's wonderful that the audio provides that experience.
Absolutely.
And then also Sitting Still Like a Frog is another great one for that list. Anything else we want to add about mindfulness for kids on this slide?
I think we can go on.
Okay. Well,
just that I'm looking
similarly,
forward to meditating.
I know, and I think.
Right.
And speaking about meditating and why we need to meditate, I mean, I think addressing the current moment is something that cannot be ignored. We have to provide the titles that I think will help kids understand what's happening, both perhaps from a historical perspective, which has been really interesting even to me to read about, the history of pandemics before and to understand where we are. And then also, I mean, I've certainly dealt with I don't want to wash my hands in my house with my toddler, and trying to explain why that's so important. So I'm really thankful for all of these titles. And I think they're so important and different in what they're really able to do.
Right.
Yeah, I think for certain kids, having a really nuanced understanding of what's going on, how they can help, is relaxing. And it's nice to feel informed, because there's so much about coronavirus that we don't understand. So it's like looking for things that we can, that are related, if not exactly guidance. And a lot of people have been looking to the 1918 Spanish flu to kind of try to predict where this might go, although hopefully it's not exactly like the 1918 Spanish flu.
I know.
Yeah, but we have two really great nonfictions for teens about the 1918 influenza. Very, Very, Very Dreadful by Albert Marin and More Deadly Than War by Kenneth C. Davis. You should recognize both of their names. They're both expert, award-winning nonfiction authors, and they do a really good job of giving the full scope without talking down to kids or watering it down, but still being very approachable. And then for the youngest listeners, we have I Don't Want to Wash My Hands by Tony Ross, which is actually a backlist title. It published I think decades ago, and in March, sales soared 2,000% in the UK.
Wow.
And so we're publishing it here in the US as well. It's about a girl named Little Princess who feels like she's already washed her hands enough. She's done with the whole exercise. But then she learns about germs and nasties and how they can make us sick. And then she enthusiastically washes her hands and makes sure that the adults in her life are as well. And then for a new, even timelier perhaps, release, we have Thank You Helpers, which is another UK import actually.
Interesting.
And it's just a picture book thanking everyone from grocery store workers to doctors and nurses to teachers who help us through these current times and make our world a little bit brighter and better.
I feel like that's the perfect book to read after, or to listen to after the 7:00 clap that we've been doing. And I think what's so interesting, they even said they were measuring the sound in New York City, and it's so much quieter obviously than it was even a year ago, but at 7:00 the sound spikes because so many people are clapping, which is really incredible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I love that this book exists as well. And like you said, for all age groups, I think we're all wondering how to address this moment and what to recommend to our patrons of all ages. So these are 4 really important recommendations. And going on to notable author reads, there are so many varied ones on here and so many exciting authors who are stepping into the booth, some for the first time and some not. Do you want to talk a little bit about these, Rebecca?
Yeah. So a very varied grouping here, but it's always exciting when you have the author read. It brings like a very personal component to it. And actually, one of my favorite reads this year was Everything Sad is Untrue, which is just a fascinating, it's like funny and heartbreaking novel, but based on the author's own life. So it's very fitting that he's reading it himself, and just an amazing personal story about being a young child in Iran. His family left and spent time in a refugee camp in Italy, and then from there landed in Oklahoma, which is very different setting, and just going through middle school and adjusting to that environment. So we're very excited that the author, Daniel Nayeri, is going to come into the studio and narrate, and that's one that we're really looking forward to this year.
And when does that one go on sale?
Good.
Oh, I put you on the spot. I'm so sorry.
I want to say August. I think it's
okay.
August. Yes.
And we'll have a list on our booksontaped.com as well too. So that's a good reminder. Head to booksontaped.com and you can listen to clips when they're available and see much more information about all of these fabulous listens.
Absolutely. And then also Turtle Boy is another good example. It's a novel, but it's also based on the author's own experiences growing up, middle school years, the difficulties of fitting in. And that's also a book that's a lot about teaching empathy and kindness. And the author had some experience narrating before. And so we were very excited to have him read this book as well.
And he just did an episode of This is the Author, actually. So you can even hear on our podcast, This is the Author, you can hear a little bit from him directly about his experience.
Oh, cool. And then we have actually, Emily, do you want to talk about the Pocket Change Collective? Because I know you know those very well.
Yeah. So the Pocket Change Collective is, it's a bunch of 1-hour recordings, and they're sort of personal manifestos from prominent activists read in their voice. So we're launching with 4, I think in July, Beyond the Gender Binary by Alok Ved Menon, about, the gender spectrum and how we can be more inclusive in terms of like people's genders and not seeing things as so binary. Imaginary Borders by Ezequiel Martinez about the environment and climate change. And This Is What I Know About Art by Kimberly Drew, who has the great Instagram account, Museum Mammy, and has worked at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And there's one more by Adam Eli about the LGBTQIA+ rights.
And I think that these are also really great for teens who are getting into podcast listening, right? Because it's like short enough that you can kind of liken it maybe to a podcast episode, but you know that you're going into something that's going to be a rich author-read experience where they have something to say that's really important to hear. And
exactly. They're very digestible.
Yeah.
They're very digestible and to the point. So you can get a great idea and a jumping off point for further change without too much time investment.
Which I think especially now, if somebody's new maybe to audiobooks, or they're looking to try it for the first time, or they just need to close their eyes at this moment and take in something without, it's hard to focus sometimes. And I think this is a really great thing that maybe doesn't require a long commitment, as you said, but will really teach kids and even adults a lot about something that they may not know about. Then should I get my prop ready for this next one?
Yeah. More variety.
I stole this from my toddler.
It's a narwhal. Yeah. So this is this amazing, adorable young graphic novel series, a narwhal and his friend Jelly the jellyfish. And
I couldn't find Jelly. I have a Jelly puppet somewhere and
there's
hiding.
Yeah. But there's just so much to love in these books. There's over 2 million copies in print, but it's never been made available on audio before. So we are really excited to produce these as audiobooks. And they're going to come out in September, I think, simultaneous with book 5 in the series. And we're going to do full cast, sound effects, really just bring you into the spirit of the book. And the author is really enthusiastic about having an audio edition, and he is going to play a character in the audiobook too. So we haven't worked out all those details, but definitely you will have a cameo from, or I guess that's technically not a cameo, but the author will play a role in it. And I think these are going to be really fun for those youngest listeners.
I'm really excited because I feel a lot of pressure. Like when I read to my son all the time, and sometimes with a graphic novel, I feel like even though I have an acting background, I feel pressure, to do all the voices and to really bring this book to life. And I'm really excited to hear the audiobook and to play it and listen with him to something like this, because I think it would just be really fun. And
perfect timing. Yeah, it'll be time for you two to enjoy.
I know. And then the world needs more perfect people. That's not the world needs more purple people.
Yeah.
By Kristen Bell and Benjamin Hart.
Yeah. So maybe some of you have heard of this woman, Kristen Bell. She's an actress.
I have heard of her.
Yeah,
I've watched a lot of Frozen on this.
Oh my goodness. Yes. I keep thinking it's a good place, but she's got a lot of range. So
yeah.
And Veronica Mars. But this is also aimed at some of our youngest listeners, and she and her co-author Benjamin Hart wrote a story that's kind of about how the world needs more purple people who are embracing a message of caring about all people and what do I want to say? Just a message about we can all get along with each other, even if we like different things. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and just kind of an all-embracing message, which I think is really nice for these times.
Yeah, like you can even debate with each other if it comes from a place of love and respect. You don't have to agree, but you can, as long as there's the respect there, you can even
respect,
agree to disagree, so to speak. I saw she posted on Instagram because she recorded this from her house during these times.
Yes, she did. So that was in this time of shutdown, the show was still able to go on. Her husband has a podcast that he does from their
attic,
from their garage, I think, or their attic, something like that. So we were excited that she was still able to do the recording.
And she even crafted her own t-shirt that said, "I'm a purple person," for when she recorded it, so she would be in full character. Even though I think she fully admits she is a purple person, she doesn't need to be in character, but this is her message. But
right.
And then finally, I'm so excited Torrey Maldonado is back because he read his first audiobook.
He did. And he actually, the All's Notable Recordings Committee, that was one of their selections for 2019. His first book, Type, is a debut. But he's been a teacher in Brooklyn, I think, for 20 years or something like that. And he really knows his students well, and I think was able to voice it like he really wanted to be the narrator, and I think just did like a stunning job and really was able to bring it to life in the way that you do when you really know the neighborhood that you're talking about. And this is another story set in Brooklyn about a kid who's kind of has a road in front of him and has to kind of make decisions about what path in life he's going to follow, and how family and friendship comes into play with that. So another great read.
And I think when kids are maybe feeling isolated at this time, it's so wonderful to have these stories that they can listen to that immerse them in that world of friendship and interacting with kids, and a really good reminder about how to deal with social situations and feelings of loneliness at times too, and acceptance, and how to how to get through that.
Life choices, I mean,
Yeah.
in middle school, you're really figuring out your way
school.
of the world. So, oh God.
Who liked middle school? Well, moving on, I mean, I think movie buzz is another wonderful category for right now. I think, people might have a little more screen time at home with both their families or their for their kids. And these are 4 really wonderful picks that have wide appeal for a whole different range of, I think, viewers and listeners.
Yeah.
So we just gave in to Disney Plus. So I can,
you did. You're a subscriber now, so
that's hence the multiple viewings of Frozen. But another thing we can enjoy then is Artemis Fowl. The Odyssey honor-winning Nathaniel Parker. I remember when he accepted his award for this series many years ago. But people they would just hear him speak and like swoon. He has such a wonderful speaking voice, let alone, his narrating voice. And he's also got a background as a theater actor. I mean, he's just brought the series to life so perfectly.
Yeah. Completely. I was watching an Agatha Christie production, I think, and he was in it, and I was like, oh, Nathaniel Parker. There you are.
Is he Detective Lindley? Was that his role?
He was Detective Lindley too, I think.
Yeah.
So this is a great one to revisit, and I think for kids who are just, of that age right now, for them to rediscover this series and what incredible narration he does.
And what's great too is that, unlike a series that's just starting, I mean, if a kid falls in love with this one, then he or she can go back, and there are 8 of them.
And they don't have to wait.
Right. You don't have to wait. And I think backlist is especially important right now, to dive in and see what, is in your collection that maybe has been missed. And this is a series that I think, deserves more attention.
The humor, I think, when you're kind of looking for an escape and humorous, exciting story. Yeah,
for sure.
And then something very different, Kiki's Delivery Service is one where the movie came out in 1989. But this is a cult classic. It's an anime film. And it's one that is still remains popular today. I think, Emily, you were saying people still dress up as Kiki at Comic-Con. And it's really, it's a wonderful film for adults and children. I recommend it. But what's interesting about this edition is it's been newly translated. So it's a fresh, new, modern translation. The book was originally published in Japanese. So I think it's a really great time to go back and discover it on audio, and a great family film to watch too. So recommend that.
That's a great combination.
Yeah.
And now Swoon, Little Women. Did you guys see the new Little Women when it was out in December?
It was so good. Yeah.
It was wonderful. And I'm just so excited. I mean, I always loved Little Women. That's one of the classic, one of the oldest books I think I owned in terms of a print edition as a kid growing up that I treasured was Little Women. And I think we offer, beautiful recordings of Little Women, which are wonderful. I mean, we have one read by Kate Redding. We have one read by Christina Ricci. And now I love that there are these other, inspired choices that relate to the same characters that we love so much. So I'm really excited about this one by Melissa de la Cruz.
Well, and it's interesting because the new movie is the first movie I've seen where I could understand why Laurie and Amy ended up together. It sort of pushed you in that direction. And then this book, I think, goes a little more in the direction of Joe and Laurie and wishing that they ended up together. So you can track your different perspectives
right.
The story that way.
I remember watching the Winona Ryder version years ago and being horrified in that version when she doesn't end up with Laurie. But maybe it's also age and perspective that makes you understand things differently too.
I think so. Yeah.
But this is really going to be wonderful. And Cassandra Campbell, I mean, can just do everything. And I should say it's Margaret Stoll and Melissa de la Cruz. Right.
Oh.
Both authors.
Yeah. Good catch. And then finally, we have the Star Wars. The Clone Wars is really fun. It's a bunch of stories written by different wonderful authors who are all steeped in the Star Wars lore. And this is going to be another recording with multiple narrators. And I think we should have interesting narrator news to announce, but we don't have it quite ready yet. But just to say, keep an eye out for this one, and it should be really a great immersive Star Wars recording.
And if you're not familiar with the Star Wars recordings, they are so special. And I say this as someone who's not maybe your typical Star Wars, aficionado. I'm not huge. I couldn't recite to you what happens in all the episodes and everything. But I remember the first time I started listening to Star Wars on audio and being like, oh my gosh, these are incredible. And the producer was like, yeah, where have you been? I mean, these sound effects are the real Star Wars sound effects. The talent who records these, their voices are phenomenal. I mean, they can do all of the characters that you know and love and then find inspiration to voice the ones that maybe you have not been familiar with, but they're just so brilliant and inspired. It's really amazing listening for even, I say that honestly as not a huge Star Wars person, but the audiobooks are really special.
I agree.
And then new installments in award-winning series. Talk about special audiobooks. My gosh, I mean, all of these are special for different reasons, but I mean, where to even begin with Aurora Burning? I mean, the kind of, again, I think the same kind of appeal for Star Wars fans. If you love that full cast and sound effects and just going completely into another world through the audio experience, then this series is definitely for you. It's just so acclaimed and beloved. And if you've missed it before, I mean, what's great is that there's a lot of audio treasures from Amy and Jay that you can even go back to. So this is the newest one, but they're audio fans themselves. And I think that also is part of why I think the producers have so much fun working with them and making sure that these audio productions bring their work to life in such a brilliant way.
And they have often said to us they have fans come up to them at signings and talk about how much they love the audiobooks and just rave about them. So it's something, particularly with this series, I think we hear it a lot.
It's pretty incredible. And then speaking of incredible series, I mean, The King of Crows is the fourth and final installment in the Diviner series, but January Lavoie has gotten an Audiophile Earphones Award for every book in the series. Can you think of another example where that's the case? I mean, for all four, she's just, she's incredible. But I mean, Booklist also said of this one in particular, they just said that the producers of this audiobook might have been tempted to hire a full cast as there are more than 25 characters in the story. The choice to leave it to Lavoie was inspired as she needs no supporting cast. Such as her vocal excellence. I mean, I think people compare her to Jim Dale in this series for what she's able to do. And also, who doesn't love sort of the combination of dark magic and roaring 20s and New York? And there's so many fun elements that just make this really an immersive escape, but in a darker way maybe than, other kinds of escape, but in a really good dark way. And then Laurie Halse Anderson is back. She's never gone anywhere. We're really excited about Chains. Do you want to speak about this new recording that's coming?
Well, we haven't cast it yet, but we're very excited to do a fresh new recording. I think the time is right. And of course, it won so many awards at the time, National Book Award finalist, and other awards. But yeah, we hope to have a really wonderful narrator attached, and we will have more news when that comes out in August.
I can't wait. And then finally on this slide, it's always a good time, I think, to remind everybody about Rick Riordan Presents and the amazing diversity of voices and storytelling that's part of this initiative and platform that Rick started to people asked him about telling other kinds of myths and stories, and he felt like with certain cultures that maybe he wasn't the best person to tell these tales, but he could certainly recognize the talent that there were authors out there who were the best people to tell a range of different stories. And Sal and Gabby Fix the Universe is the newest one from Carlos Hernandez, who he won a Pura Belpré for the first in the series, right, for Sal and Gabby last year.
Yeah.
And it was just such an acclaimed audiobook. I'm so thrilled there's another one. And this is another great example of if kids love, this one, they can go back, and now there are 2 in the same series available for them to dive into. Yeah. Anything else you want to add about this one?
I can't think
the
of
reviews
anything
for it
else.
have just been so great across the board. And it deals with, I always forget what it's called. I think it's the time-space continuum. Like there's some physics components in there.
So it has that STEAM element too for kids to learn about that, or for adults to learn about that. But it's so wonderful. And the first audio too was just so acclaimed, and we're thrilled to have this on our list.
Yeah.
And we also have a collection, I should mention, again, booksontape.com. You can see the entire collection of all the Rick Riordan Presents titles that we have, because it's a really incredible grouping. And then finally, we just wanted to quickly show you some more summer picks and another Rick Riordan title to keep an eye out for, of course, because there are so many, but this one is a great one to look for. Paola's Santiago and the River of Tears. And I'm also really excited. I was just talking to you guys about Date Me Bryson Keller, and I love that it has that like kind of 90s rom-com vibe to it, and I think it's a great escape summer listen. It's about a guy who every week somebody asks him out, and like everybody in school knows that, okay, whoever asks Bryson out, like that's who he's going to date that week. And then one week a boy asks him out, and Bryson secretly says yes. And Kai, who asks him out, didn't expect him to say yes. Then they have this sort of secret connection, and they start dating. But I listened to an interview with the author where he talked about how much he loves certain films and certain rom-com tropes, and he was really excited to bring that to life, but in a way that also spoke to like the LGBTQ community and biracial and just really inclusive of maybe people who have not always felt represented in those storylines. But this is just a delight. It's really, really great. Any ones on here that you're particularly excited about? I mean, all of them, obviously, but
I really like the Unicorn Academy series, which has been a runaway hit on Chapter Book. It is in at least its 3rd or 4th month on the New York Times bestseller monthly paperback list, and we're bringing it to audio. Books 1 through 6 just published. We collaborated with Noisy Crow in the UK on the masters, and British narrator Kristen Atherton adds sparkle to the series, and there's also a little bit of intro music that's magical. And it's just a really fun summer read for anyone who loves horses or unicorns or glitter, and it's just really talk about escapism.
I mean, we all need that. Of course, Linda Sue Park is back this year, and we're thrilled to have Prairie Lotus, which is, I think, people who maybe love Little House on the Prairie, but this is, a more modern and inclusive update of that time period, and we're so thrilled to have her on our list.
Great, and it's a great read. Like, I loved Little House on the Prairie and kind of learning how people lived, on the frontier and how they did things. And I feel like it's kind of a nice variation on fans who love that historical fiction.
And also,
and more inclusive too. Yeah.
And she really wants to go to school, right? So it's about sort of also empowering females and finding yourself and your place.
And the real struggles that people went through, but also there are good things too that took place. So
yeah. And of course, Kimberly Brubaker Bradley. I mean, her previous Odyssey winner obviously was wonderful in audio, and this will be read by Bonnie Turpin, who's another Odyssey winner. I feel like we're bringing all the Odyssey winners together in this one, but this should be fantastic.
Yeah.
And we can't forget library books are not for eating.
I was just going to say.
It's about a school librarian who's also a dinosaur, and she really loves eating books. And, of course, the moral of the story is that books are for reading. They're not for eating, but it's an adorable story. And the audiobook includes a full music and sound effects mix, and Tara Sands narrates it, and she's just so good at this sort of book. Yeah. She's wonderful. I'm so excited about this one. There's a big dinosaur fan in my house, so so this will be a big hit. And then finally, since we're going through all of that, I mean, we just also have to mention, I mean, obviously Unicorn Rescue Society is another fabulous example of Adam Gidwitz always working with another amazing writer who helps him tell a story that has a real, they all have different cultural backgrounds, and it's just been interesting, especially on audio. There's been a lot of talk about like the languages that are used, like in one earlier audiobook, January Lavoie had to speak, and now I'm going to forget the language that she had to learn for the audiobook, but there's just so much to take away from all of the books in this series about learning about different cultures, but also with a wonderful adventure storyline and escape. And we actually have a new narrator for this installment, Rebecca Solar, who is going to add that Cuban Spanish to make it even more own voices.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
And Adam narrated their new bonus stories about the Society of the Unicorn. I think I'm not saying that quite right, but that he narrated himself, which sort of explained the background lore of the Society of Unicorns. That then these are modern day adventures based around that. So you get to hear Adam's voice on the recording as well.
That's great. And he's another author who's so passionate about audio and has recorded before for us. And this is so important to him, this aspect, like the final, piece of his work is that it comes to audio, and that's really meaningful. Yeah. And then finally, Kat Patrick is back with Tornado Brain. So lots of amazing summer 2020 picks. And, we hope that this helps you out with recommending listens for all of your patrons, young patrons, families, and even adults who want to dip into what's new and even some backlists perhaps that we have to offer from Listening Library. This was really fun. I love chatting about what's coming up this summer with you guys. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Jen, for hosting.
And of course, just one more reminder. What?
I said it's always great to chat books with you.
Oh, it's always great to chat books with you, and hopefully people watching, you feel the same way, and that's why you're tuning in. So if you want to hear more, go to booksontaped.com. You can find all of these titles and many more, and we have clips for all of our titles available. If you don't see a clip yet, it's because it's coming soon. So check back. And if you ever have any questions, head over to booksontaped.com again, and you can find how to sign up for our newsletters or contact us. And we're thrilled to talk about audio anytime, and especially with our librarian listeners. So thanks for tuning in, and happy summer.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.